I have an idea. I really do. I have an idea. I want you to listen to this, Jim, because you're part of it. I have a suspicion. Now, of course, it's more than a suspicion. You have to all pussyfoot when you're carrying a bag of truth around in relationship to the rise and fall and the decline of everybody. And I suspect, and this town, of course, is almost the epitome of it. I suspect that at least 15% of the population of New York City, particularly Manhattan, has somewhere, concealed someplace, a pile of papers, the beginnings of the eternal novel, the poem, the play, the thing I was going to write once. And I'm going to write it yet. You just wait and see. Not only that, the other 10%, or one other 10% of the population, or perhaps they even overlap, because I think the collectors of the impedimenta of dreams oftentimes are repeat offenders, oftentimes almost always are. I would like to know how many untouched watercolor sets there are in this town of guys who once, and women who once, were going to take up painting. Thousands of pounds of caked, hard, rock-like oil paints that haven't been touched since the Christmas of 1939. And the cracked guitars that are hanging in basements covered with dust that haven't been strummed since 1947 after the second lesson. I have a feeling that these things are holding us down. Speaking of things that are holding us down, this is WOR, AM and FM, New York. I have a suspicion that these are the things that if somehow we could clear the decks, get rid of all this glop, and admit once to ourselves we're not going to do it, and throw all this stuff out. We ought to have a dream collection day. You know how they have rag collection days and old metal collection days? We ought to have a dream collection day where everybody takes the half-finished model airplane out of the basement, the half-finished novel, the cracked guitar, the ancient watercolor set, and puts it out in front of the house as a kind of public recanting, you see. Puts it out in front of the house for the salvage people to finally come and get. And everybody, of course, would have to do it together, all together. We'll clean out all these broken, old, ancient, sad, poor, wonderful, idiotic, debilitating, defeating dreams. Because you know what happens, Jim, is that every time you go into the closet and you see that lump of paper back there, it looks out at you. Every time you go down to the basement and you see that guitar, it looks at you. And it says, I am your past. This is what Scrooge's ghosts, you know, were based on. I was a dream once. Look what you did to it. That pair of hockey skates that in a moment of impetuosity you rushed out in the fall of 1951 and bought. You wore twice, both times realizing that you had weak ankles that went all the way up to your ears that are still hanging down there in the basement. Huh? Let's clear it all away. Let's have Dream Collection Day. Let's get behind it and get rid of all this stuff. It's killing us. It's like John Osborne is talking about the English tradition. It's killing us. It isn't alive anymore. It's like dead tissue growing on us. Let's get rid of all those portable typewriters that'll never write that novel. Let's get rid of all those yellow sheets with all the notes for all the poems and plays. And let's get rid of those old guitars. And we'll declare it a citywide holiday, Dream Collection Day. And we can all We can all sit behind our windows and we'll watch these wagons go past, loaded to the gunnels. Loaded to the gunnels. With all the old glop and all the old sad, decayed past moments of glory. All the old staring, vacant faces of the worn ice skates that were never worn. Dream Collection Day. What a magnificent idea. Magnificent moment. It's like looking at an old telephone book. An ancient telephone book of 1926. And realizing that half of the people are gone and dead, and those numbers never ring. Never will ring again. So why don't you come clean? All of us. And no one would be embarrassed, you see, because we could all pretend that we're collecting it for defense. Which is literally what we would be doing, you know. But once we clear all that glop, all that stuff that doesn't exist anymore out of our mind, maybe we could defend ourselves. Who knows? Even though there is the secret, sneaking, burning suspicion within each one of us that we can't defend ourselves against anything, really. Maybe we got rid of all these old cigar boxes full of charcoal pencils. Those battered pads from the life classes of years ago. Maybe it might start again. But what would happen, of course, would be this. The day after Dream Collection Day, there'd be a guy walking down Fifth Avenue somewhere, maybe up in the 90s. Walking along there, and the wind is coming out of Central Park. He smells just the touch of that sere brown winter greenery with its strange excitement. And he would say to himself, you know, what I ought to do is learn how to play the guitar. And it would start all over again. It would start all over again. The whole business. The whole business. The whole business. 3 hours later, some guy would go into a stationery shop on 8th Street and buy 4 pads of yellow second sheets, 2 pencils, and he would go home and he would start to write. And the first line would say, the youth sat looking out over the town that lay like a small paperclip curved in the bosom of the creased green earth. And it would start all over again.